Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. Today, we are going to be doing the 6-star challenge. Basically, I'm going to be talking you through my all-time favorite books down to the books that I've given 1 star, and I will give you a brief explanation of why I chose these. I'm going to try not to ramble too much because there are a lot of books on this overall list, but yeah, I just thought it would be really fun. I did make an Instagram post of this, so you can check that out, but this is the more in-depth version, and hopefully the audio is okay, because we're outside. I thought it'd be fun to be outside today. Okay, so starting off with my 6-star books. These are my all-time favorite books. We have The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. I feel like these really speak for themselves. I absolutely love these books because I love not just the fantasy and the adventure, but I love the relationships. I love the characters, and I love how they grow. I love seeing all of their growth arcs are really satisfying. And then also it's just epic. So I love it. I'll love it forever. Next I have Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This book is weird, and I like that. This book, if you don't know, basically follows this man who is called Piranesi, and he's in this strange place where there's a lot of water and there's marble, and he is trying to survive. It gets really weird. There's a bit of a mystery, and I really, really enjoy it. The next one is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. I love this book. It follows a virus that's released when the Arctic ice caps melt, and each chapter is kind of a short story talking about a new person and how they're affected by the virus. And I found it absolutely beautiful. It made me cry, which I think is pretty impressive because I don't cry at books that often. But yeah, you just really connect with these characters in such a short amount of time, and I really like that it has that connecting factor of the virus and how it affects people to kind of pull you through the entire story. The next one is a nonfiction, and that is Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I absolutely love this book. Number one, it's an incredibly important topic. Tuberculosis still exists, and still a lot of people die from it every single year, and it is absolutely, completely, 100% treatable. So the book talks a lot about that, about kind of the history of tuberculosis, but then also about how tuberculosis still affects people today. I found it really interesting because tuberculosis really affected a lot of pop culture during that time, and you can still feel the effects of that today. I mean, read Dracula, and then look up the connections to tuberculosis, and your mind will be blown. So I really enjoyed that. My next nonfiction is The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating by Elizabeth Tova Bailey. I love this book because I related to it a lot. This book is... Sorry if you heard my rooster. That's funny. He's saying hi. This book is kind of a memoir, and it is about this woman's experience. She had been backpacking through Europe, and she contracted a disease that was unknown, and it caused her to have dysautonomia. I have dysautonomia, which is essentially where your autonomic nervous system malfunctions, and it causes dizziness, passing out, that kind of thing. And she was completely bedridden and actually had to be moved into a care home because of how bad it was. And while she was in that care home, her friend brought her a snail, and she learned about snails, and it kind of gave her some purpose. And okay, I'm sorry my rooster is being so loud. Calm down, dude. Anyway, it gave her a lot of purpose. This book teaches you really cool things about snails, and I really related to kind of the feelings that she has, because I also have dysautonomia, and it can be scary and lonely and hard for people to understand. The next one is the Percy Jackson series as a whole. This series truly ignited a flame in me as a child. The reason that I was a humanities major was because of this book, truly. I mean, truly it was. I love Greek myths and the history of it, and of course it's just so fun. This is such an integral part of my childhood and growing up, and I think it really did help me develop a lot of the interests that I have now with learning history, mythology, how it affects people. So yeah, that one will be an all-time favorite for my entire life, I'm sure. Next one is Anne of Green Gables. Anne of Green Gables follows an orphan named Anne who gets adopted by a brother and sister, and just kind of her figuring out how to do life. And she is very imaginative and very curious, and she talks a lot. And honestly, she reminds me of myself. I see a lot of myself in Anne, especially when I was a kid. A lot of people often told me that it was very annoying, and that's kind of how she's treated as well, and she has to learn how to embrace those things about herself and know when to do certain things, and it's just such a heartwarming story, and I absolutely love it. Next one is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This follows a pandemic and people who are in a traveling theater group going across the country trying to find who's still alive and bring hope to themselves and to other people. I really love this book. I love the way that it's told, the way that the stories are kind of woven together. I think it's such a beautiful narrative. And I love that theater brings people together because also, if you couldn't tell, I was a theater kid. So, okay, hopefully that's not incredibly annoying. It might be. Some ambiance for you. The last book in my all-time favorites is The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. This follows a family who is moving from the Midwest. I feel like maybe it's Kansas? That might be wrong. But they're moving to California during the Dust Bowl because they are no longer able to keep their farm. If the Dust Bowl really ravaged so much of the Midwest and really caused people to not be able to grow anything. So they have this dream of moving to California where everything is green and beautiful and they can get jobs and they'll be able to buy a house and it will be great. And then it's really difficult to get to California. It's really difficult once they're in California. And I absolutely love it. I love this family's fortitude and how they have to work together. I love that it shows like real family dynamics of when they agree and when they disagree and how they treat their children and how they put their family first. And I think about this book all the time. It's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful book. I need to reread it soon because I absolutely loved it. Okay, so the next category are my 5-star reads. I'm going to go through these a little bit quicker because I don't want this video to be a million years long. So we're going to go through these a little bit faster. I'm just going to kind of give you a general reason why I like them. Cloud Cuckoo Land. This follows a timeline in Constantinople in the 15th century, in a small town in Idaho in the 1940s up until 2020, and what's the other one? Oh, the future, a spaceship. And it's an absolutely beautiful story. I think it really focuses on otherness, how people treat you when you're different, and I think that it's really beautiful. Next one is The Last Murder at the End of the World. I like this because it is kind of a mystery, and you don't really know what's going on, but then there's some sci-fi elements, and things get pretty weird at the end. Basically, there's this island, there is surrounded by a fog, the fog can kill everybody, and there are scientists that keep the fog at bay, and when one of them gets murdered, they have a certain amount of time to solve it before the fog rolls in and kills everybody. The next one is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This is told from the perspective of a young girl whose father has been selected as the lawyer in a trial for a black man who has been falsely accused of rape. And this takes place in the South in the 1930s, I believe. I believe it's before World War II. So it's very racist place back then, still today in a lot of places. And basically you're following her as she learns how to treat people, what racism is, why people feel that way. Oh my gosh, there's a heron. It's a beautiful story, and I love the way that it's written. I love that it's told from the perspective of a child because I think that that is a wonderful way for a lot of people to understand these concepts. So yeah. The next one is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. This is kind of just very nostalgic for me. We watched the movie a lot growing up, and I haven't read the book till recently. And you follow a little girl who's an absolute brat. She gets sent to live with her uncle after her parents die, and her cousin has I don't know what he has. Something that affects his muscles, and he has a hard time walking, and they discover a secret garden, and they have a beautiful family relationship, and she learns how to not be a brat. And that's basically it. And it's a great book. I really recommend reading it in the springtime. It's like absolutely perfect springtime book. The next one is Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. This is a novella. It's very short. I think it's like 100-something pages, and it's about this girl who trains these giant hawks to kill manticores to like avenge for her family. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. You should read it. The next one is The Thursday Murder Club, the entire series. I absolutely love it. My friend Pauline recommended them to me. These are such fun mysteries, and they're really funny. They have such a dry British sense of humor, which I really enjoy, and they are heartwarming. You have a wonderful found family. They're wonderful. Next one is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice is also my favorite movie, so I think that affects a lot of why it's my favorite book, but I think it's a wonderful story, and I think Jane Austen is brilliant, and she always will be. The Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel follows multiple people in multiple timelines, one of which who lives on the moon, and it's basically about pandemics and how people respond to them. The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa is about a woman who lives in this place where certain things are deemed, I don't know, incorrect, I guess, and the memory police says we're taking this away. Nobody can remember it anymore. So like if it's say it's a rose, then you have to remove everything in your house that contains rose scent, pictures of roses, live roses living in your garden. You have to burn all of them, and then everyone will forget it. And there are some people who keep the memories that the memory police do not want them to have, and basically she's an author, and her editor is one of those people who remembers people, so she harbors him. And it's a wonderful dystopian, and it makes you think a lot. A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman is about a grumpy old man who has lost his wife, and he learns to love again with a beautiful familial connection that he has with his neighbors. The Will of the Many by James Islington is a pretty awesome fantasy where you're following this guy who was an orphan. He gets adopted by a high-ranking, senator, basically. It's kind of like an ancient Roman-esque world, and there's a lot of conspiracies. He sends them to the school to learn more information, and our main character has some of his own motivations as well. And then our last one in my 5-star category is An Immense World by Ed Yong. This is a nonfiction that's all about animals and their senses and what that tells us about the world we live in. I thought it was absolutely amazing. I love learning about animals, so that was so fun for me. And I love the way that Ed Yong connects it to how we feel and to how we treat animals, how we treat the earth, but then also just understanding them and learning more about them. Okay, I'm going to be so much faster because I feel like I've already been talking for a long time. My 4-star category. I'm going to try and keep this to one sentence for each book. Here we go. I Who Had Never Known Men follows a group of women who were in a bunker. They get out of the bunker and they're trying to figure out what's going on. It's very meditative. It makes you ponder a lot, and it's pretty sad. 1984 by George Orwell. This is a classic dystopian literature, and it follows a man who works for the government. The government watches everything that you do, and what if he doesn't want to be a part of that anymore? What will he do? How will he manage those feelings? True Grit by Charles Portis is a Western. It's about this girl whose father gets shot, and she is going to avenge his death. And she meets up with this kind of rough cowboy, and they set out to get revenge. And it's just a fun, classic Western. East of Eden by John Steinbeck is not a Cain and Abel retelling, which is what I thought it was when I went into it, but it's basically a meditation on the Cain and Abel story told through multiple generations of families, and then also father-son relationships. This is one of the most amazing character studies that I think you could ever do, and it's a fantastic book. The Last House on Needless Street is, I think, categorized as a horror, and it surprised me in a lot of ways that I can't tell you because it would be a spoiler, but it's not actually that scary. You should read it, and I think it has really wonderful things to say about understanding and mental health. Little Women by Louisa May Alcott follows a group of 4 sisters as they grow up. I have 3 sisters, so I related a lot to a lot of what happened with the sisterly relationships, and I think it's a fantastic book. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This one you probably have heard of. It's pretty popular. I really love the folkloric aspects of this. I love the stories. I'm a big fan of folklore, and this one really got me for that specific reason, even though I actually don't like the character of Emily that much, which might be an unpopular opinion. The Other Side of Night by Adam Handy is kind of a mystery where you are following, how to describe it? It's kind of hard to describe. Basically, you have a detective who is looking into the deaths of this boy's parents and the man who has taken him into his care, and it gets kind of weird and a little sci-fi-y, and I really loved that weirdness of it. The God of Endings by Jacqueline Holland follows a woman who becomes a vampire and her life through the world wars and up until present day, where she is now an art teacher and kind of takes one of her students under her wing when she realizes that he's having a hard time at home. From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Doughty is a nonfiction, which is about cultural death practices around the world. I learned so much, and I find this such a fascinating topic. She talks a lot about funeral reform, especially in the United States, that funeral homes are very predatory towards grieving families, and how we can improve that so that grieving families are able to celebrate the life of their loved ones instead of paying $1 million to people who don't need to do all the things that they do. Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer is such a weird book. It follows this place called Area X. The government is researching it. They send in these research teams. You're following one of those research teams. Things get weird. The nature is weird. It's weird, and I love it. Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I really like this book because the narrative style is very different than other books that I've read. It uses the second person a lot and basically follows this dream theater and the story of these two men who have to take a god across the country to take over the tyrannical rule of the current emperor. Dune by Frank Herbert. I like this book because I love sci-fi. I think this is a great... Honestly, Dune, I feel like, is a great space opera. There's a lot of political intrigue. There's a lot of really interesting character study and the concept of saviorism, which is very interesting. Okay, that's all of them for the 4 stars. 3 stars. There's less here. There's less and less as we go, which is nice. 3 stars. Cackle by Rachel Harrison follows kind of this witch who lives in this town and everybody's like afraid of her, so they really respect her. And then this new lady who moves into town and kind of becomes enamored with her. I just thought it fell kind of flat. The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I am trying to remember exactly what even happens in this book. There's girls are going missing at a school? I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember that I don't like the twist very much. So that's not really helpful because I don't remember that much about it, but I remember my feeling. My feeling was meh. All's Well by Mona Awad. I think this book is interesting, but it was much gorier than I prefer and much more sexual than I prefer. Follows this theater teacher who has chronic pain, which I have chronic pain, so I did enjoy that aspect of it, of her talking about how people don't understand, and kind of what would you do to get rid of that pain, which is something that I think people with chronic illnesses think about a lot. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I wanted to like this book, but the main character is so annoying, and she just truly gets so unhinged. I read on in the series, and it just made me dislike this book even more because of the decisions she makes and how unhinged she is. Contagion by Erin Bauman is a space zombie story. Again, I really wanted to like it, but it kind of fell flat. It was a little bit over the top. Mr. Penumber's 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. I really wanted to love this book because I really love Sourdough by Robin Sloan and Moonbound. I really enjoy his other 2 books, so I wanted to love this one a lot, but again, it really fell flat for me. I think that the way that the conflicts were resolved didn't make a whole lot of sense and were a little too easy. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I've read this book so many times. I've written so many essays about it. I've analyzed the crap out of it, and I just don't like it that much. Contact by Carl Sagan. I love sci-fi. Carl Sagan is obviously a giant in the science industry, the astronomy industry, and I don't love all of the religious discussion in this book. I'll leave it at that. To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. Honestly, I feel like this actually should have maybe been lower in the list because it made me mad. I have decided that I really just don't like Christopher Paolini's writing very much because I also didn't like those dragon books he has, Aragon and all those ones. I think it's called like The Inheritance something. The decisions that the characters make in this book are truly mind-boggling and infuriating, but the core concepts of it are really interesting. Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. This book is a really interesting kind of slice-of-life story about somebody who is neurodivergent and how they make sense of that in their lives, and I think that it could be helpful for people who are maybe trying to understand somebody in their life who is neurodivergent, or if you are neurodivergent, maybe it would be good representation for you. Okay, my 2-star books. I'm gonna go faster. Have I been saying that this whole time? Yes. Have I been doing it? No. Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I hate this book. I wanted to love this book. I do. But the main character sucks so much. I hated him so much that even though the world is so cool, the story is so cool, the main character just killed it for me. Which is sad because I love 80s nostalgia. I like video games. It's such a fun concept, but I hate that guy. I don't even remember what his name is. He sucks, though. They both die at the end by Adam Silvera. This book was so cliche. I think it wanted to say something, and it said it, but I think it did it in not a very artful way. And obviously both characters die at the end. That's what the title is. But I felt like their connection didn't feel real. It felt very two-dimensional to me. The Book Eaters by Sunya Dean. What do I remember about this? I think I mostly didn't like the ending, and I was confused about... Oh, I remember. The main character's kind of ethics didn't make a lot of sense to me because it seems like she flip-flopped a lot. So that was the main thing I didn't like about that one. Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies by Catherine Mack. Like, this has been a pretty popular one. It's kind of similar to, like, the Finley Donovan books. And I did not like it because I did not like the casual alcoholism that was in it. The main character is, like, definitely an alcoholic, and it's played off for jokes. And I don't think that that's something that should be joked about because it's very serious, and it ruins so many people's lives every single year. So if you or someone that you know is struggling with alcoholism, please reach out for help and don't be afraid because you can get sober at any time, even though it's hard. And then Hide by Kiersten White. This is a horror that takes place in an amusement park. There was a character from Pocatello, Idaho, which is like pretty close to where I grew up. That was the main thing I liked about it. It's just dumb. It's just didn't make a lot of sense, and I just felt like it was stupid, which is not a very constructive criticism, but that's how I felt. And my only 1-star book, only one, was Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. I recently talked about this. I read it for Reading Blog. The What Color Am I quiz recommended it to me as a purple reader, and I hated it. I hated every moment of reading it. I hated the reading experience. I hated the characters. They were all just like a bunch of gross men, and I didn't feel like there was any bigger picture. I didn't feel like any messages were really being told, and I don't think that it did this wonderful tying the story together thing that people say that it does. I think that it did a horrible job at that. I think that it wanted to be How High We Go in the Dark and Station 11, and it failed. So yeah, there's my scathing review of Cloud Atlas. I'm mad at that quiz for recommending it to me because truly I had the worst time reading it. So there you go. There's the 6-star challenge. My all-time favorite books down to the book that I hated the most. And let me know, have you read these books? Do you agree with me? What's your list of 6-star reads? What are your all-time favorites? I always need more to add to my TBR. Thank you for being here. Thank you for putting up with my roosters being super loud, and hopefully the plane didn't ruin the audio of this because that would suck. So yeah, thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!